name is Jacqueline Moulton, and this is a waiting room. A waiting room where nothing happens, no one comes to get you. The doctors don't arrive, the gods don't arrive, which the waiting room as a place of nothingness is both so real and completely untrue at the same time. I think so much happens in the waiting room. So much happens in the space between. And yet when you're waiting on anything, and we're all waiting on something at any point in our lives, it's such a full space. Like the space of absence is actually teeming with life. It's teeming with even your own many selves, your own complexity of all the sort of selves and otherness within us that guide us when we're in liminal spaces, when we are waiting. But I think or even for me, I feel like I've lost the ability to sit and wait, right? Like we find ourselves in a place of waiting, and I think we try and find a way out of that feeling as quick as we can. I know I do. If I have to wait in line for more than 2 seconds, I get my phone out, I get something out. And so I wanted to sort of create a space where there's this play of both absence, nothing, the abyss, and also teeming with life, death even. It's a very haunted space, maybe is a good way to put it. Waiting in and of itself is such a haunted space where we're accompanied. And maybe too, I think like there's something in waiting that feels so lonely, and yet if we like can survive that middle ground, if we can actually just sort of sit and be and exist and not take ourselves out of the feeling, we find great company there. But I think maybe to get to the company, you have to really, I don't know, be in the abyss in a way. You can't, to get the company that is so rich there, you can't avoid it. You can't skirt around it. Yeah. But I love that idea that we are all waiting and we are all wounded. And so it's a space in and of ourselves we can sort of come to time and time again, which here it's a physical representation of being both waiting and wounded. And yet that is a space that lives within us at any given point. It's like at any given point, you can like attune yourself to that feeling in yourself. And maybe in that way, that's how we sort of ease the loneliness of that space. And not only our own loneliness, maybe that's what enables us to be better sitters with one another, right? If I can sit with myself, if I can sit with my own space and place of waiting, I'm better equipped to sit with another, right? So in here, it's interesting when you sit by yourself. I've sat in here by myself. I've also sat in here with other people. It's just an interesting interchange, right? And that's how life is too. We sit with ourselves and we also sit with others, whether or not they're even present. So yeah, I wonder what learning how to wait and sit with our own selves, how that can like reverberate outward relationally. It's hard to sit with someone else in pain. It's hard to sit with ourselves in pain, right? But to sit with someone else in all of their pain and loneliness and agony in a way where you can't rescue or fix or change, just to be, is, gosh, I think really difficult. It's painful. But we sort of miss the other when we try and fix the situation and not just sit. So I like that in here you can actually sit and do that sort of nothing work, that nothing work that asks a lot of us. In here there's audio playing of an art therapy session that I did, and so the sound in here is interesting. It's interesting in the sense because it's like it's such a contained space that you Like even now I'm aware of my own echoing voice, which the abyss and the echo is always such an interesting thought for me. How you sort of need the chasm in order to have the echo of voice, and this space sort of performs that in a way too. Your own voice sort of coming back to you in a way. And that is also this sort of reconfiguration of the loneliness we can fall into, that calling out in those empty spaces is actually a dialogue. And two, there's a therapy of there's audio of a therapy session happening. And so, but it's soft, so it doesn't kind of, it's almost like you have to sit for a while for then the sound to sort of kick in your own mind. And it's this conversation that's not present, that's filling the space with a dialogue. Which again, the silence in and of itself, silence is always a relational thing. The way absence is always a relational thing. It's always tied to its other, right? Silence to sound, the abyss to fullness. And so maybe even thinking about it that way, of like, when we're in moments of silence, in moments of aloneness, in waiting, in being wounded, you're actually closer to the other side than you think you are. Like suffering in a moment of silence, you're actually closer to the sound of joy than you think you are in loneliness, right? The further you step into it, the closer you get to its other side of connection and community, and even if it is your own sound sort of reverberating back to you, even if it is just the breathing of someone else in the other room who is in more pain than you, right? There's this, you're closer to it. And so in that way, it can't be avoided, but we spend so much energy avoiding it. I spend so much energy avoiding it. So yeah, I like how sound plays in this space. Sound and the video is, I took a dance class. So there's a video of a dance class playing sort of on a loop with no sound. I think in all of it, there's that, maybe that's the point of all of it. I'm wondering what the point of all of it is. Well, not all of life, Lord help us. Just of this one space. That like I said in the beginning, like you're waiting and no one's coming to get you, which I think I have this propensity in some ways to like really want to be saved. Like I'm kind of waiting for something big to come and save me. I'm waiting for something to like pluck me out and drop me into this life that is 100% different and 100% amazing, right? And here, no one's coming to get you. No one's coming to save you. And the idea that like there isn't a doctor coming. And in here, I titled it "All the Gods Have Horses," and which is something someone said to me once. But like the gods aren't coming to fix you either. And in that way, it becomes this your own like woundedness that brings you into the space. In the end, it's like you're called upon to be what arrives, to be what does come and not save, but what comes and attends. So there's sort of this theme in here of like, at some point you have to get up and go forth, right? Even though we are always waiting and always wounded, the gods aren't coming to save you. And so you must be sort of these moving gods in the world, these doctors who didn't arrive here. You have to become that and attend to not only your own suffering, but the suffering of others, the suffering of the world, right? And so I think the dance class is sort of this, and the theme of dancing, it's an invitation to like sit as long as you need, wait as long as you need, and like truly wait. And yet when it's time, you have to like, sort of that idea when the idea of the wounded becoming healers themselves, right? That you must sit and you must wait. And you must be wounded. And out of that woundedness, at some point you'll feel that urge to sort of emerge and become what must dance in the world, right? Not fully put back together or not even fully unwounded, but sort of a limping, struggling dance in a way but is it in and of itself an invitation to the other? So a lot of the poem sort of has this idea of kind of like, okay, like let's now get up and move. You've got to be sort of you have to tend to the wounded, sort of the call of it at the end of the day. And again, that tending, I think the tending to the wounded, the tending to our own wounded selves is a lot less action oriented than we think. It might look the exact same as sitting and waiting and doing nothing. Again, sitting with someone else who is suffering, what is the work? It's a presentness, it's presence, it's right? It's lack of action in a way. The lack of action sometimes takes us out of the shared space that we really truly need in order to see and be seen. There's got to be an echo in there, one to another. But to have the echo, you have to have the abyss. You have to have the nothing space. And here feels cavernous. Like I love this as a space that I can see the other wall. I can feel my voice coming back. It's a container in a way that both is full and empty, which again is the way the human heart sort of moves through the world. But we like to fill it. We like to do something. I do too. It's hard to sit in here in silence. The first time I did it, I think I was like 30 seconds and I was kind of antsy-pantsy. Kind of like, oh. Well, and there's this, there's a 2-hour hourglass here too. So there's this kind of like this, like if you sit and you can watch it, there's sort of that felt experience of time truly slipping by, which is like, there's the just like, ugh. That is so terrifying to me. Time trips me up. So to sort of sit in silence and feel time passing is, I don't know. I think there's something in us that is like incomprehensible. Maybe other people can comprehend it, but it's incomprehensible to me. And maybe that's why it's like the therapy session, the video they play on loops. There's kind of this ongoingness of them that, I love a loop. And maybe that loopness of it is a way to try and avoid that sense of time, that time loops but doesn't, right? It's not linear and yet is. We do move through time and we imagine to be linear. So to sit and actually like feel it and watch it sort of drip away is strange, surreal sort of feeling. Yeah. So the title, All the Gods Have Horses, is something I think a therapist said to me once, like in that weird place of memory that is very sort of dreamlike, and I'm not sure, which I've been connecting that idea in my head to almost that ongoing jealousy we have in a way, like all the gods have horses, and yet I have I have a Kia. I have all the, like I have like a funky hip flexor, and I have like a dog who's cute but really scruffy and not all that attractive. Like you couldn't make an Instagram account for them. And, meanwhile, all the gods have these like beautiful horses, and I'm like, there's something about that like everydayness of other people having what I don't have. Even if it's not objects, it's that like, other people seem happy and I don't. Other people have, and I struggle in that feeling. I think almost in a kind, open way, I can be jealous of anyone about anything, anytime. Like you show me anybody, and I'll be like, oh, whatever they have, I sort of wish I had it. And but also in a sense that all the gods have horses, sort of meaning. The gods are busy. The gods aren't angry, they're just busy. And in that sense, this like lofty sort of spirituality that we think is going to save us isn't quite going to save us. We have to do the work for ourselves and for one another. Right? Like a god on a beautiful horse isn't going to come to save you, but maybe me with my Kia will. not save you, but right? Like when we sort of like recenter our centers, recenter our thinking on not only what we do have, but maybe what we don't have. Maybe that's the magic. What I don't have actually leads me and equips me to be a good partner in the dance, right? And that's what help is, right? Help here is like a partner in the dance. Even if you're dancing alone, it's the music that fills the abyss. And what I don't have, what I lament over not having, even if it's the big things, right? Whatever I'm missing in my life that is big and causing me pain. Like we were just talking about time. Time slipping away from me feels like this huge, like I see a 5-year-old child and I could just punch them with jealousy. Not punch them, punch children. But like that is for me like this, time is an abyss I can fall into. And I'm like, I have so much less of it than you. And actually that lack and that pain in me, if I can sit in it, if I can even scream into it and let it be and hear its own echoes, then I am more equipped to sit with others who have an abyss of time, right? Who have a different abyss of their own. Yeah, and so I think maybe those everyday little petty jealousies are actually moments of connection because they do reveal a gap. They reveal gaps in us. And I think, gosh, it's like if we could every moment we had a sense of that gap, that jealousy, that even little petty, all those little moments, it just shows a gap in us. And that gap is actually like the most important thing. Because without the gap, you can't reach, right? Like you need a space to reach across, to reach out. We wouldn't reach out if we had everything we wanted, right? Like there's nothing I would love more than to have everything I've ever wanted. Like they say, money doesn't buy happiness. And I'm like, I'd like to try, and then I can use that excess money to go to therapy and talk about how I have all this money, but I'm still not happy. Like that's a great problem to have. But, right, like if we truly did have that, if we had that overabundance of everything I've ever needed and wanted, and if I didn't have to feel all those petty jealousies, right? Like how amazing. It's like, no, right? Because we would have no capacity to reach out. You wouldn't need to, you wouldn't want to, you wouldn't sense it if someone's reaching out to you. You wouldn't have any awareness of the gap and the emptiness in other people. And again, I think if we tuned in, gosh, that moment probably happens like 100 times a day. Or maybe I'm just overly jealous. But no, I think honestly, I think if we cued into it, if you could be attuned to that humming of desire, want, need, jealousy, ache, agony, hunger, when you put it that way, it is so aplenty. There's so much there. Even though it's like we label most of those things as absence, right? Or lack. My desire for something I don't have comes from a lack. My hunger comes from a lack. My sadness even. And yet that space is so full. It's actually teeming with a nothingness. And that the nothingness is really haunted by, I think, ghosts we really need to listen to, right? Sort of like all the gods have horses and they're sort of off riding, right? And we're sort of left with the dust that's settled. And the question sort of becomes like, what will we make here together? What will we make within our own selves? How will we tend to those ecosystems of ache, nothingness, want? And so in a way, I think the space has a lot of poetry everywhere. I've been reading a lot about birds and bird calls. And I was reading something too about how like when birds are in environments where where there's a lot of stress, they lose the capacity to hear one another. Like they cannot hear one another, right? And if we we are all animals, right? We lose the ability to actually like hear and communicate. Our actual survival becomes in danger. And I've just been thinking a lot about that, of the ways that birds communicate to say a lot of things, one of which is, right, like it's their way of saying I am still here, right? And the chirp back is like, yeah, me too. There's this like back and forth. And how important that is, and how I would say how poetic that is of the birds, like this really beautiful reaching out through a play of language that I would define as poetry. And so the world is full of poetry, and the world is full of poetry in a way that the world and the earth and animals, I think, use play of language to survive. And we do too. But I think we like to think of ourselves as above all those things. Like the poetry I write is certainly better than the birds, right? No. But we think of our human thought as on a higher plane. But in reality, we're doing the same things as the birds. I'm playing with language in a way to say, like, somehow, despite the odds, I am still here, right? You read it and you respond in some way, in any way, and it's sort of that chirping back of, I am too, I am too. And that's why creative work is so important, right? Like, it is this, gosh, I like thinking about it this way. It's like this continual call and response, like across the ages, right? Someone initially, in order to survive, paints their hand on the cave, right? Somebody, in order to really survive, writes something of that experience down, right? Someone else responds. Someone else makes something else because they've survived, right? It's that sort of like beautiful but gritty and also really animalistic, earthly art and act of survival, right? There is art because we've survived long enough to make it. It's the birds chirping, right? And yet, like the birds too, right? If they're in acoustic environments where a lot of too much human-made noise, their ability to communicate is thwarted. And we have a lot of our own thwartations in between how we communicate. I don't think thwartations is a word, but it sounded kind of good when I said it. But yeah, like art is this beautiful act of survival that it's this call and response down lineages, down decades, beginning with not even us, right? The earth has been crying out, the earth, the birds, right? And then humans enter the scene and mess some of that up for the earth, but that's like, let's refocus. And yeah, right, there wouldn't be human language without animal language. And so their acts of survival become our acts of survival. And so poetry, I think, can perform that for us. I write it and you read it, and even if you hate it, right, you move through it in a different way, right? You reading any poetry, someone else's voice maps your own mind for a moment. Someone else's voice plays with language in a way you hadn't thought of, and that can create like a small change that actually makes big changes as it reverberates outward. Because then your own mind is expanded, and you'll do your own creative work out of that. And so it is a response that happens over time that changes things in the long run. Which again, I think makes any sort of making a brave thing of survival. But again, what we're surviving with is sort of what's left. Almost in that idea, all the gods have horses, and they sort of left the scene in a way, leaving us to now create with what remains in the empty spaces.